Hello, I'm Catherine Eisen-Claus. I'm Vice Chair of the National Indian Gaming Commission, and I'm Taos Pueblo. Thank you for joining us for this webinar today. At the NIGC, we've been seeking to connect tribes with information and resources that will help equip them to stop or prevent human trafficking in their communities. We are pleased today to host the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, or Ncmec, at our headquarters today to bring information about their work to the tribal gaming community. Ncmec is a nonprofit organization whose mission is to find missing children, reduce child sexual exploitation, and prevent future victimization. They have been at the forefront of child protection for more than 3 decades. Their work with victims, families, law enforcement, and others, as well as increasingly with tribes, has been expanding. And today, as you can see, we're joined by 2 of Ncmec's staff. Alan Nanavati is an executive director within the Missing Children Division at Ncmec. Mr. Nanavati has served in this capacity since 2017 and has program oversight over long-term missing children cases, forensic services, forensic imaging, as well as a specialized team providing on-site assistance to law enforcement. Prior to his current position, Mr. Nanavati served as the chief of the Federal Bureau of Investigation's Crimes Against Children program before retiring after 22 years of service. In this role, Mr. Nanavati collaborated with both domestic and international law enforcement to implement proactive strategies to protect children. Mr. Nanavati holds a Master's of Science degree in Applied Behavioral Science from the Johns Hopkins University. Megan Notary joined Ncmec in 2008 as a staff analyst in the Case Analysis Unit and then transferred into the Missing Children Division. Megan now supervises 5 team members whose caseloads include family abduction, child sex trafficking, and endangered runaways. Megan attended Bloomsburg University for her undergraduate studies and Widener for postgraduate studies. Prior to coming to Ncmec, Megan worked as a case manager for the Court Advocate Pretrial Program in Luzerne County, Pennsylvania, as well as a victim specialist for the Anne Arundel County State's Attorney's Office. Thank you all for joining us online and in person today. Alan and Megan will now give their presentation, which will be followed by plenty of time for questions and discussions, so we'd like you to hold questions until the end, please. They've also provided some handouts that will get to all the participants online. Thank you.
Thank you. So what is a missing child, or who is a missing child? A missing child is a person younger than 18 whose whereabouts are unknown by their legal guardian. We classify these cases into 5 types, and we have 2 groups of case managers, teams that work on them. So the first group is critical and runaway unit, and then our second group of case managers are family abduction. We have about 10 family abduction case managers who primarily just deal with family abductions, whether that's domestic or international. And then the critical and runaway unit, there's about 30. And they spread across the country. Our main headquarters is in Alexandria, Virginia. And we also have an office in New York, Rochester, an office in Austin, Texas, Lake Park, Florida, and then Tustin, California. And I'll go over the types of cases that we work. So the family abduction cases that we deal with are the taking, retention, or concealment of a child by a family member in violation of a custody order or decree. These are cases where there is a custody order and the mom or the dad is taken off, or a grandparent or another relative. These cases are very, very difficult to work. Law enforcement sometimes will definitely help, and sometimes they're like, this is civil, they're with their mom, it's not that big a deal, there's no endangerments. But in our research and working these cases, these are some of the most dangerous cases that we have. The majority of the Amber Alerts that we get are for family abduction cases. We also work on international, so any children that are taken out of the United States, we also work on those cases with the State Department. We work with the Hague Convention, and we assist parents with any information in regards to those. And we also help with reunification, especially if they've been taken out of the United States. We work with the State Department in regards to reunification. Non-family abductions. These are probably the scariest ones that everybody thinks about, where the child is walking to the bus and then just disappears and somebody comes off the street. They don't happen as much as I think people think they do. They do happen, but they're not as prevalent. These are, usually Amber Alerts are issued for these cases, and the child is usually, in most of these cases, located quickly. The lost, injured, or missing, those are children usually under the age of 11. They're missing because we just don't know what happened to them. The disappearance could be that they wandered off. A lot of those are children who have autism or mental disabilities who have just wandered away, and we don't know what happened to those. And so we usually consider those critical, and we work on those right away and get our case managers on those. Endangered runaway is the biggest group of cases that we do have. Those are any missing child who is missing on his or her own accord, and where parents are unknown. The majority of the cases that we see at Ncmec are coming in from social services. These are children who are in foster care, group homes. We do have parents who call in, but the majority of those cases are social services. Critical missing young adult, or we also call them Section 5779, are children from the ages, or older juveniles from the age of 18 to 21. We also have a lot of these kids who are still in social services care, whether they have a mental disability or there's some reason that they're still with social services, but we do get quite a bit of these cases as well. So in regards to the intakes, as you can see from this slide, and this is again only what Ncmec sees and the intakes that we receive, cases, the majority of the cases that we're seeing from 2014 to 2018 are endangered runaways, like 90% of the cases. Family abduction is a little bit of a sliver of 6.5%, and then lost, injured, or missing, and then non-family, as you can see, is very tiny, and then Section 5779. So how does Ncmec get involved in the case, and how does the case come to us? The majority of our cases come to us through our call center. We have 2 call centers. The main call center is in Lake Park, Florida, and that's where our biggest group of call takers are, call center specialists. We also have a small office up here in our Alexandria office, and we get about 350 calls a day. It really depends. Like not yesterday, Tuesday was probably over 350. It was because of the holiday. People are coming back in, and they were very slammed. Also, the hurricane caused us a little bit of an issue, and so our Lake Park, Florida office closed, and we had to move our operations up to Alexandria. So people who normally don't answer the phones volunteered. My case managers were on the phone talking to people and taking cases, so it's like a whole effort. We all kind of jumped in on it, and that's something that happened with Katrina too. We had to all band together for all those calls. So that's something that we work on because we're 24/7. We can't shut down. We have to take the calls. We have bilingual staff, access to language line. If we don't have language, we'll find somebody to talk to you. We will find someone. We get referrals, from NGOs. Also, we can also assist with reunification depending on the case. So we have established groups with American Airlines, Amtrak, Greyhound bus. We also work with the National Runaway Safe Line. So if a runaway is in need of assistance, we can work with them to hopefully get the child where they need to be. And then we also have the secondary Amber Alert. Alan's going to discuss that, but our call center doesn't activate an Amber Alert. That's not our job, but we assist with the distribution of the Amber Alert. So how does a case, kind of start? So the child goes missing, and someone either reports it to law enforcement or they call us. And then if they call us, we say, call us back, call law enforcement right now, then call us back. So then the case comes through, we get as much information as we can. You can also, social services also works with us with our web forms. So because there's so many cases coming in from social services, there are states across the country who work with us and they just enter everything online through a web form. This is not open to the public, it's just open to social services, but it's a great way of getting information in to us. So once the call is received, it is then assigned to a case manager, so somebody on my team or somebody else's team, depending on the case category. And what we do is once we're assigned, we get an intake of kind of a brief explanation of what happens, and we move on it right away. We call either the parent if the parent called it in, or if it's law enforcement. We get all the information. We check everything to make sure we have all the right, the eye color, the hair color, like where do you think they would have gone? What are they wearing? Tattoos, like all of those things. So then once we have as much information as we can, then we kind of start doing our resources. And what that means is we try and see if we're able to create a poster, because not all cases get a poster. It depends on the circumstances. So say for a family abduction case, we may not be able to do a poster because there may not be custody and there's a lot of things like that. But for an endangered runaway, we should be able to do a poster right away, get it up, and then get distributing it. So some of the resources that it shows on this slide, we do the poster distribution, and we can also work with our case analysis unit, which is all analysts, and they work on researching if there's a companion to this child or a suspect. They work on researching that person. If we have a driver's license, or if we have a license plate, they can put it into Learn to see if it's been spotted anywhere. They also run public record searches for us. They run information about phone numbers, social media, any of those things. So we work with them on all of our cases. We also have Team Adam. So Team Adam is something that we would deploy if we have a critical case. So if an Amber Alert comes in to us, we can deploy someone from our Team Adam group. And Team Adam is basically about 100, is there about 100 right now?
About 110.
110 consultants who are retired law enforcement who have worked on these type of cases. So I think we have 2 who are specifically do landfills. They do landfill searches, and there's not many people who can do landfill searches across the country. So if we have information that they need that, we'll deploy them out. Or we have specific people who can work on autistic children cases because we kind of know they wander towards water, or those kinds of things. So we can get them deployed right away. As soon as we get that case, we call law enforcement and say, this is what we can do, and we send them out. And it's all free. They don't have to they don't have to pay for any of this. This is something we can do. And then in regards to FBI, we work with them. They're in our building, so they get notified of these cases as well. We have the Secret Service, we have the Marshals, State Department, I'm probably missing everybody, but NCIS, military, we have them all. And so anything we need, we go to them and they help us on anything. In regards to family support resources, we have our Family Advocacy Division. So if we have a case where there's a parent, we want to get them assistance right away. And so we have someone reach out to them from our Family Advocacy Division who are counselors, or they require social workers, and they can find resources for that parent. Because when a parent's child is missing, you can only imagine the fear, the anxiety, they don't know what to do, well, where do I go? And so they can kind of get those resources. And also, if a child comes back, they also give those reunification, because there's a lot of different issues that happen when a child does come back. So they work with them on that. We also have our Team Hope, which is parents and grandparents, siblings, who have dealt with a child that's gone missing in their own family, and they volunteer their time to talk to parents and be their support while this is all going on. And some of them keep track after the child's been recovered, and so we work really closely with them as well on our cases. And then we have our travel assistance, especially for international cases. Parents have to travel back and forth to different countries in regards to Hague hearings and different things like that. And so we work with the Victims Compensation Fund to get them travel for the children to come back, because most of these parents do not have that kind of money to be flying back and forth to these different countries. There's numerous appointments and things they have to do, so it's extremely expensive. Most of these parents end up being almost broke from the amount of money they're spending on the travel. So we try and assist in as best we can. And then we have our long-term cases. I'm going to go over a little bit more with them, but that's where a child's been missing for most likely long. I don't know, what do they consider it? How long?
It can be anything over 5 years, generally.
And so those are cases that we've worked on, but this child still has not come home. And so we work on age progressions with our forensic imaging. And if anyone's ever been to our office, the artists are amazing what they can do with the photos to bring a child to life in a new picture. And then they also do reconstruction of skulls of unidentified children as well. We have our forensic resources, which is like our biometrics, and we have 2 case managers who deal with unidentified. They're wonderful, and they know a lot about genealogy and DNA and all those things. And then we also, go ahead.
No, I was just going to add in, you want to finish, and then I'll just touch on a couple other points on this.
And then our long-term case reviews is where we invite in regards to a long-term case, we invite law enforcement to come in and have a panel in our training center, and they go over all of the information that has ever been brought about that case to come up with other ideas as to where they could look. Is there other evidence? And it's usually about a day or 2 days, depending on the case. And our liaisons come from all over, and it's really an amazing experience to be in there and see how they can assist with those cases.
And one of the things, just to reemphasize, that Megan brought up in terms of the resources that the National Center has. We do have resources internally, but much of what we're able to offer to law enforcement and the families are due to our partnerships or collaborations with public and private partnerships. A couple of them might be, you see up there, LexisNexis or Clear. Our analytic resources, the reason their case analysis division is able to support law enforcement, and we're not talking the larger agencies, but really the smaller agencies that don't have their own analytic component, or they're only a couple officers big, who need this up front. Maybe it's running registered sex offenders, working with the U.S. Marshals. We have analysts assigned to their sex offender tracking center. But these private companies will provide us free of charge use of their databases. So the culmination of the various partnerships that we have allow us to do many record checks. Some of it is even license plate information and cameras, the data that's collected through some of the private companies that are collecting license plate data. In addition, Megan mentioned the landfill capabilities of our Team Adam consultant. We also have Dr. Lisa Briggs out of the Western Carolina University, who trains canines for human scent detection, and she's got dogs of her own. So she's got a great network across the country for us to draw upon to help out on that. And I'd say the two areas where we often, law enforcement doesn't have the sufficient resources, and we're able to help, and not only from Team Adam, from the experience that individual consultant has from their many years of experience, but also as Megan mentioned, the landfill or large-scale searches and the canines are two areas where we seem to help out quite a bit on these cases. And then lastly, in terms of the biometrics on our forensic resources, we have a number of relationships with private DNA labs. So in many cases, we'll either help facilitate either low-cost resources to a department, or in some cases we get pro bono resources through us and in-kind services, and we're able to offer that to law enforcement for DNA testing related to either a missing or an unidentified case.
And so I'll go over a little bit more of our resources. So when we create a poster, we are able to, we have about, I would say it might be even more than 240, but we have photo partners across the country we are able to send these posters to directly. So we create the poster, and then we're able to put it up on social media. We have Twitter, we have Instagram and Facebook. We work really closely with Facebook. We have Walmart, so I actually think they're trying to make digital boards now in Walmart, but right now I think they only have just the flat board, but they're trying to do digital. We have Ncmec, which is the back of a truck, and I see them once in a while around here. I saw one the other day, actually, and it has our poster on it. And then, of course, there's Red Plum, and I think that goes over to like 100 million, I want to say, people across the country. So that's one of our resources that we have. We also have some partners over in Mexico in regards to Univision and different things like that. We try really hard to keep adding more because the more we can get them out, the better off we are in regards to those cases. So those are some of the photo partners that we have. And then I'm not sure if anyone's ever seen some of our posters, but this is what they look like. It'll have a picture, and then on one of them, actually two of them, they have the age progressions also listed on there. So the one in the middle is a family abduction case where those children were taken by their mother. The mother was located, the children never were. This is out of Maryland. And so they did do an age regression on them, so they're still missing. And then the other two are endangered runaway cases. So this is kind of what the poster would look like once it's created. And this can be found on our website or Instagram or Facebook, any of those. And that's kind of what it looks like. And then we did go over a lot of these. I don't think there's anything else to add on that one.
No, I think.
Okay.
Oh, the only thing I'll add, if you go back.
Oh, yeah.
So the biometrics, one of the things that in working with our parents through our case managers or through Team Hope or through our family advocacy division is, especially in the endangered runaways where they've been missing for 6 months or longer, the collection of biometric data. As you see there, dental, fingerprints, DNA. And obviously the reason for that is so law enforcement, and the unfortunate incident that human remains are found, that law enforcement can do a comparison to see if if potentially it is the missing child has been missing for a period of time, especially as Megan will talk about later, the high-risk nature of some of our endangered runaways. But the piece about that's important is much of the work that we do through our forensic services, for example, is we have about 110 cases along the southwest border of human remains that have been reported to us. We don't know if they're children or not. It's found in the relationships that we have in law enforcement. And over 30 of those cases are just with the Tohono O'odham tribe in terms of them being found along the southern border of Mexico and Arizona. So many times we are working with tribal law enforcement, but primarily on human remains cases is what we're seeing through our unidentified persons program.
And then I just wanted to kind of show in regards to the age progressions, because a lot of people have questions about this. So a child under the age of 18, we do an age regression on that child every 2 years. And in order to do the age regressions, we would really like to have reference photos from the family, but that's not always possible. And that's why our artists are so amazing, because they're able to, make a determination on like what they think the child could look like, because it's only a scientific tool. But in the one case that you'll see on the left-hand side, that was a child that was taken when he was an infant. So he was very, very young, and it's really hard to do those age progressions. But Steve, our artist at the time, was able to get some photos from the mother's family and things like that to make the age progression. And then when Eric was found, that's what he looked like. So I think it's pretty amazing. And then, of course, JC Dugard, who went missing, although I know she didn't really like her age progression. She told Joe, who was the artist, she didn't really like it. But then she was like, it does kind of look like me. But they do amazing work. And so any person that's over the age of 18, it's every 5 years. So we work with the families really closely, if we do have a family, to try and be understanding of this. Some of them, it's very emotional to see what their child could look like. So we have Team Hope work with us to just go with, speak with the parents and really make them feel better about the whole thing, because it is a very difficult situation. So, but I think our forensic artists do a wonderful job. And it does take about 8 hours to complete. So you can only imagine how many requests they get. So it does take a little bit of time to get them. And then these are some of our federal partners I spoke about, marshals and the Secret Service and the State Department, FBI, postal inspector. So they're in our building, and we can just walk down the hall and say, hey, I need help on something. And they're like, no problem, what do you need? And on critical cases, they're right there. So it's really awesome to have their partnership with us. And to see how everybody bands together in regards to like missing children. So, and then of course we're in collaboration with all the tribal. We're trying to get more in regards to Ellen's been doing a wonderful job. We're doing outreach, and just we really want to get everyone involved in regards to the missing children issue and exploited children.
I think just with that, one of the reasons obviously we've been probably in the last year and really mostly this calendar year of reaching out is really twofold. One, to make tribes and tribal communities aware of the resources of the National Center, but also to see what we can do to encourage reporting to the National Center. As Megan will go over in a little bit of the little reporting that we do have, what we're seeing from it, but the more reporting we can get regarding missing children, Native American children, either on or off tribal lands, it'll give us information that we can analyze and give back. But it also allows us, from the various aspects of services, family services, training, and outreach that we do at the National Center, it allows us to tailor it towards the tribal communities to see how we can best serve.
And so in preparation for this webinar, I really looked into I did a lot of research of my own in regards to our cases that we had. And so the slides you're going to see are only what Ncmec has seen. So it may be a larger number outside of Ncmec, but this is what's been reported to Ncmec in regards to Native American children. So as you can see from this slide, from 2013 to 2018, the number of cases, that's the highest amount, is the endangered runaway for Native American that we were seeing at the center. And then it goes to family abduction, lost, injured, or missing, non-family, and then the older children, the section 5779. So when I saw that, I definitely wanted to like do a little bit more research to see like what types of cases are we getting in regards to those endangered runaways? Where are they going missing from? What's their endangerments? And so I looked into some of the endangerments, and what I saw was number one is that when it says history of missing incidents, is that they're running consistently. They're chronic runners. They're continually running, which is a huge red flag for us because we're like, why are they running? What's going on? And where are they going? And then the second endangerment was the drug and alcohol involvement, then mental health, suicidal tendencies, and then possible child sex trafficking. And again, this is a really small amount of numbers that we have that were, with us, but it's definitely showing that there's some issues that we want to address and see what we can do to assist on these cases. So I don't know how well this slide's going to show, but as you can see, that it'll show missing from the tribal territory and then missing outside. If you can, I think is it the little, I'm having a hard time seeing it,
The yellow is the tribal community and the red is outside.
Yeah, so like outside, as you see, like a lot of the children that have been reported to us that are Native American it's outside of the tribal lands. So when I went back, I also did some research in regards to where are they going missing from, and when I looked, I was able to, let me go to this guide, I probably should have put this one here. The missing location was, majority of them were social services and shelters or group homes, things of that nature. And then the 24% was the home, like a parent contacted us about it, but the majority were that social services, they were going missing outside of the tribal community. And then when you look at the numbers of what the ages are, you'll see that the 15 to 20 range is the largest number of children who had been reported to the National Center. And then, which is not unusual in regards to, depending on what type of case that is, the 58% of female, usually in regards to endangered runaways, and this is across the board, it's usually more females than males. Although I think that's just that it's underreported. A lot of males do go missing, we just don't get a lot of reports on that.
And when we look at, the endangerments, the fact that nearly 90% again within the tribal community of only 1,500 reports, but we see the correlation with the national perspective in terms of the larger percentage, and obviously this is also probably due to the reporting through social services, as Megan said. We have a number of programs we've developed to work with social services and law enforcement at a national level across the United States related to endangered runaways or child sex trafficking, or our partnerships with federal law enforcement agencies. What we don't know is, are those sufficient to try to implement or partner or collaborate within the tribal communities? Or, as Megan said, is there other information we can get from you that can help us better define how we can adjust our resources to meet the needs?
You're on, Alan.
So Amber Alert, you can go to the first slide.
Okay.
I'll do it. So when we talk about Amber Alert, we talk about the criteria, and this is the criteria that is set by the Department of Justice, and primarily there has to be reasonable belief that an abduction has occurred, that there's imminent danger or serious bodily injury or death, that the child is in imminent danger or subject to serious bodily injury or death, that there's enough descriptive information for an Amber Alert to be issued, that the child, again, is under 18 years old, and that the child has been entered into NCIC. And when you think about the cases that we'll talk about in a minute, our endangered runaways that Megan really emphasized during the first half of this presentation generally don't fall into that area. And a lot of that, much of that is because of the lack of descriptive information. So when you think of the Amber Alert program, it really is intended to be, from the day it started, is for the public to serve as the eyes and ears for law enforcement and serve as that additional resources in trying to locate the missing child or identify an offender that's been reported. And when we talk about Amber Alerts, we're really talking about less than 200 a year. So these are the most egregious cases, most heinous, and the ones where we need to make sure information gets out there. So what's the Amber Alert distribution path? And we ask, what is the National Center's role? Well, primarily, we get our notification of the Amber Alerts from the state coordinators. Each state, and actually the Navajo has an Amber Alert coordinator, an Amber Alert program. So that information comes to the National Center, and based on our agreement with that organization or that coordinator and that agency, we then have a role of further distributing. So we'll be a primary recipient along with broadcasters, radio, TV, and then also the Department of Transportation or the government signs that are out there, highway, roadway signs. So our role then is to serve as a secondary distribution. So we identify partners, and those partners might be road signage or digital signage, whether it be in bus stations, train stations, highway, roadway sign, or trucking stations. We also have partners within our federal law enforcement partners. We will push the Amber Alerts out to them. And the information we get it from the states. We take exactly what they give us, and one of our partners with FEMA, we actually will push out the cell phone alerts that you get. So when you get a cell phone alert, chances are it was through our call center over to FEMA and then out to your cell phone in terms of recipient. I spoke earlier about our partners in terms of, Megan spoke about the poster distribution. We also use the poster distribution to push this out to our internet partners, our social media partners. So again, it really is the distribution of information is the important part of the Amber Alerts. But not just the Amber Alerts, but the everyday posters that we push out. One of the things we try to do is try to identify additional partners that we can bring aboard to be a secondary partner. Those partners that have digital signage are usually very good partners. Wherever people are going to be and there's the ability for signage, we want to get that information out there on missing children or Amber Alerts, just so that people can be aware, see it. I'll give you an example. We had a case where, and this involved our posters, where a 17-year-old child goes missing in New York City. Child was diagnosed with autism, and that child had an affinity towards trains. So our Team Adam consultant was involved, goes out there, works with the NYPD, and gets posters out there. He's handing the posters out, law enforcement's handing them out directly to people, and then they're also posting them throughout the train stations, throughout the subway stations. A woman walks up same day, sees that poster, looks down and sees this girl and reports it, calls our call center. Call center says, thank you for the information, but call 911. She calls 911. A transit officer comes down and recovers that child safely. It's nice to see when the whole process works, especially a child that's at risk in terms of potential special needs and is at risk and out there by themselves missing. We have a number of other examples where we had a 5-year-old missing from Wolf Point, Montana, was taken off their yard. That child was eventually recovered alive, but due to the Amber Alert, the information in the Amber Alert had a concerned citizen call in and say that they saw they saw an individual with the child. That individual, based on the information that was out there, arrested the individual or detained the individual, received information from the individual where the child was found safely, and that child was recovered unharmed. But we see that. We also see how the wireless internet alerting, the WIAs it's called, in terms of wireless and emergency alerting, in terms of how it's making notifications through the cell phone. We had a 1-year-old missing. Due to the WIA, again, an individual saw the information regarding the non-custodial parents that took this child, reported that information. The parents were arrested with the child, and the child was safely recovered. We see that regularly related to the Amber Alert. As you can see, the road signage and what you'll see, I mean, obviously there's Department of Transportation signs, but then you see Walgreens here with information, digital signage, clear channel signage. It really is about getting information out there, obviously, not only our posters and our social media site, but also the phones. So when we look at these cases, a majority of the cases that we see are the family abductions. And why do you think of that? That's obviously because that's where we have the most information. A known individual taking a child. We have the most descriptive information, so it fits the criteria of an Amber Alert. So the National Center's been involved with the Amber Alert since 2005. So during that time, nearly 35 children have been recovered, and of the children that have been recovered, that we can, the 98, nearly 99%, 967, which we believe is a conservative number, is those where we can tell, based on the information we see from law enforcement, were directly related. Their rescue has been directly related to the Amber Alert based on the information that they provided. And 58 of those were due directly to the wireless alerting through the cell phones. So we try to gather as much information as we can when a child is recovered, so we can determine for Department of Justice how helpful these programs are, and that's where we are. But it's great to see nearly a 99% rate, and really that is because of the work that the public is doing in terms of responding to Amber Alerts.
And I'll just add, I worked critical cases, and I still do, and one of mine was an Amber Alert. It was a family abduction one where the children were taken, I believe, from Utah, and they're, non-custodial parents, and the Amber Alert went out, and I worked really closely with law enforcement, and they were sending all these things, and I was sending all the posters out, and a person who worked at a hotel saw the Amber Alert on their phone, and they called police immediately because the car that was described in there was outside in the parking lot, and the children were recovered safely. So it's really important. I know sometimes those phones go off and everyone's like, oh my gosh, it's 2 o'clock in the morning and the phone's going on. But it's really, really important, and it helps. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that they got it on the phone or saw the sign on the road, and they were able to assist law enforcement with those types of cases. So the next thing that I want to talk about is at-risk populations, because that is something that we deal with a lot at the National Center. So in 2014, the Preventing Sex Trafficking and Strengthening Families Act was passed. We kind of call it HR 4980 at the center, just because that's what we heard about years prior to it coming, that it was coming, and we were preparing. And so what this was that it identified and documented and determined services that social services needed to work on, because they were seeing across the country that children who were in care who went missing weren't being reported to law enforcement. No one was really looking for them. There weren't plans in place for those children. And so we wanted, along with Congress and the President, we wanted to make sure that we were working to help these children, these at-risk children, because the endangered runaways are not that not all the missing children are important, but I feel like sometimes people forget about the endangered runaways, or they call them throwaways. So we want to make sure that we're giving as much attention to those as we are to the people who have the children who have the parents. So in regards to this act, they needed to report incidents of sex trafficking, including sex trafficking data and adoption and foster care analysis, make reports so that they could, keep track of all of these children, use increased information collection, so come up with specific ways to prevent sex trafficking, and when a child goes missing, locate and respond to children who run away, because a lot of social services, foster care did not have anything in place in regards to a child going missing. They didn't know what to do. So when this came in, a lot of the states banded together to develop specific protocols. They only had like 2 years to do this, and some are still working on it, but it's been amazing what I've seen at the center, because they have to call us. They're mandated to call us in regards to these children. So the increase in numbers, and that's probably why you see such a high number on our charts, is because social services is mandated to call the National Center in regards to these missing children. And they have to also file law enforcement reports, which a lot of them weren't doing. They weren't filing missing persons reports on these children. So because of the influx of all these cases, we were able to develop a microsite for social services to send these cases into us easier, because sometimes these are really large agencies who have children that go missing on a regular basis, hundreds and hundreds of children. So if you think of Los Angeles or New York, I mean, you can only imagine the number of children they have in care and how many are going missing. So we made a platform for them where they could enter all the children's information, get it quickly, and get it to the case managers. And we see a huge increase in those cases that come through. And we call them children missing from care. That's the type of cases.
And I think just to add to that, when in 2014, our intakes each year through the call center were approximately 12,000 per year, and now we're upwards of 30,000 since this act was put into place and the social services agencies are reporting.
So our average case manager probably has between 100 and 150 cases. It could go a little bit higher, and most of them are the endangered runaway cases. And even our family abduction unit, who normally did not handle any cases but family abduction, they now take ERU cases or endangered runaway cases to assist. So because of this act, although at the center, we had been working on child sex trafficking for many years. We had been seeing, information that was coming through on cases, and so we had already started to develop case managers who were specifically assigned to these child sex trafficking cases. I am one of those case managers who was assigned. So I went from family abduction to child sex trafficking and knew nothing about it and was learned, trial by fire. So what happened was, the Federal Trafficking Victims Protection Act was put into play, and it basically is the definition of what trafficking is. Because I don't think a lot of people understand what child sex trafficking is. It's a very, they're like, well, what does that mean? So it's sex trafficking in which a commercial sex act is induced by force, fraud, or coercion, or in which the person induced to perform such an act has not attained 18 years of age. And also, just because a child may not be working with a pimp or a trafficker does not mean they're not being trafficked. If they're, exchanging something in regards to a sex act to have housing, drugs, those types of things, that's considered child sex trafficking. And that's a huge portion of the at-risk population is what's going on these days, is that in order to survive on the street, they're kind of doing those in exchange for housing or a place, like food. So we have seen reports of child sex trafficking in every state. There is not one state we haven't seen. In 2017, we assisted with approximately about 10,000 reports related to that. So when a case is reported to us, we have a list of questions that we ask at intake in regards to different indicators, which I'll go over. And so these are how we mark our cases to know, is this a kid that we should be looking at for these types of endangerments? It includes both males and females, although males are very, we don't get as many cases because it's just not reported. There are males, we just don't get as many reports. And the average age is about 15, although I've seen fairly young, between 10 and 11 is probably the youngest that I've seen. And that's, trafficking by their family or somebody else. So indicators. So these are just a few. There's probably more that I could go over, but it would take a really long time. But one of the number one things is a history of running away. If they're a chronic runaway, there's a reason they're running and where are they going and how are they surviving when they run. So that's kind of when we start seeing kids over and over, we call them repeats. We know something's going on with that child. They also have large amounts of cash or multiple cell phones or hotel keys when they return, or they're flashing it on social media, Facebook, Instagram, they're showing all these things. Tattoos or branding. Definitely children who are involved with a pimp or a trafficker, the majority of them do get branded at some point. I haven't seen it as much lately. It's been kind of down, and when they brand them on their face, they brand them on their necks, they brand them where people can see it so that it's like their property. And they're very noticeable. Gang involvement, this has definitely been rising lately across the nation in regards to what we're seeing at the center. Girls who are involved in gangs are usually being trafficked in some sort of way. Although I also, in the last couple months, have seen males being trafficked if they're involved with a gang. So we're working on trying to figure that out as well. Also, physical abuse, or they come back with multiple sexually transmitted diseases. They travel to other states. They, like we had said before, the hotel keys, they're constantly in hotels or being found in hotels. They're frequently truant. They don't go to school. They may have a communication with an older boyfriend or a girlfriend. Social media is probably the biggest thing that we look at, because there's emojis that they're using that describe kind of, our analysts are able to figure it out, but they're using different things, and that's kind of a clue that, oh, there's trafficking possibly going on with this child. So those are some of the indicators, but definitely changes in personality. They're very law enforcement. They don't want to deal with law enforcement at all. They're angry. It always seems like they have a story that they've prepared. When they get found, they have a story, and that's what they stick with. And they're not going to consider themselves a victim. They consider this is just what they do, and so they will never consider themselves, when they meet law enforcement, that they're a victim of anything. This is what they want to do. So, like I said, when a case is intaked, we do ask several questions in regards to if we think they could be a victim of child sex trafficking or suspected of it in some way. If any of those indicators come through, a cyber tip line report is created, and that is sent to our analyst to do more thorough research through social media, LexisNexis, TLO, all of those things. For CST cases, we have a specific analytical team called the Child Sex Trafficking Team, and so I have an analyst that works with me. I send them phone numbers, social media, anything I can come up with, I send it to them. They do a report. I get that report and I forward it on to law enforcement. FBI also gets a copy of those reports because they work with us in regards to innocence lost, in regards to any child that's listed as possibly involved in child sex trafficking. What's important about the cyber tip line, it was created in 1998, and I think if I'm reading this correctly, there's been more than 16.5 million reports sent to the cyber tip line. So the public can do these reports, and law enforcement. We also have the social media and service providers, internet service providers, who send directly to the cyber tip in regards to images that may be of a sexual nature with children, online enticement, sex tourism, misleading domains. You can find this on our website. There's a portion on the website that says, do you have a tip? And you can hit the cyber tip line and enter it. Nobody has to know who you are. You just send the tip in. And this is a lot of the information that comes through our cyber tip line in regards to the trafficking and child pornography and things of that nature. And then, like I said, I did do a lot of research because I was trying to figure out, what we're seeing. And then when I knew it was going to be in regards to casinos and gaming, I looked to see what in regards to the endangered runaways. And I found one of a 13-year-old girl, and she was actually just located in August of this year. And she was located at a casino after a tip came into law enforcement. So somebody saw her or, recognized her, and they contacted law enforcement, and she was rescued. And, so far we haven't had any new reports for her, but she was 13 years old and located in the casino. Then we also had a 16-year-old out of Idaho. He went missing for about a month. I couldn't find him anywhere, posters, nothing. And then he was just walking along in the parking lot of the casino, and security stepped up and said, "Who are you? What's going on?" And I think he was nervous, and he told them, "I'm missing, and here's my name," and they ran him, and he was located safely. We also had an 18-year-old male who was trying to get into the casino using a fake ID. So we know that our kids have fake IDs. They have everything under the sun. So he was located by trying to do that. So, a smart security person was like, "This is ridiculous," and called law enforcement, and he was picked up. Then we also had a 17-year-old who had gone missing. She was missing for about a month. She was located in a casino with an adult male. We don't know if it was an online enticement situation or not. She was really not giving a lot of information at recovery, but she was located at the casino after someone saw her and gave a tip. And then a 16-year-old female was located in a casino in Nevada by security while attempting to solicit herself in the stairwell. So we had known that there was possible child sex trafficking with her, and we had sent out her poster, but we hadn't gotten anything back. And somebody was in the stairwell. They ran into her. She approached them. They went to security and told. So a lot of the cases that I did research, it was that somebody went to somebody and said, "This kid shouldn't be here. They look too young." I also researched family abduction cases as well, just to see if we had any in casinos. And we did, where the non-custodial parents had tried to hide in the casino with their kids. And so the youngest child, I think, was 6, I thought I saw. It was about 6 years old. And somebody called, they were suspicious, and they were picked up in the casino. So it's definitely eyes on, see something that's not right, they don't look right, because a lot of these kids, we always say they blend in. They kind of blend in, but there's something that someone's going to see that's going to say, this kid, there's something going on there. And then I wanted to go over a little bit of the victim services support. I did a little bit before in regards to the Family Advocacy Division. I could not do my job without them. They are a huge support because, like I said, the families are going through such turmoil and they don't have anywhere to turn. And our family advocacy reaches out, calms them down, and processes everything for them and says, this is what we're going to do, and this is what we're going to find for your child. And in regards to reunification, especially with the international cases, a lot of those kids are gone for a long period of time, and they're turned against the other parent. So when they're reunited with their parent, you can only imagine how difficult that must be, because they don't really know this parent or have heard not so great things about the parent. So they'll go to the airport, they'll work with them to do the reunification at the airport, work with the children, get them set up with counselors. I mean, you name it, they do it. And they'll do that anywhere in the country, or if they need to go overseas, at times they can do that, not always, but usually it's here in the United States. But they work really, really hard on Amber Alerts and anything you need. And like I said, Team Hope, our volunteers, they're wonderful, and they help parents greatly. And then in regards to our child sex trafficking victims, we have the Family Advocacy Division helps us by either reaching out to the parent to give them recommendations on what to do to help their child once they're recovered. What can we do to make this, to help this child get out of this lifestyle? How do we get this? Because it's a very difficult situation. We also work with social workers and try and get them in programs, or send them to different group homes so that they can get the help they need. And we also have hope bags, which during certain law enforcement operations, a lot of these children are located, with nothing, or scantily clothed, or they might have a toothbrush, maybe. So we have hope bags that Kohl's helps us. Actually, we have a partnership with Kohl's and Old Navy, and they donate clothes, toiletries, and all that stuff, so that when this child is located, we can kind of hand them something and say, like, here's some pajamas, here's some underwear, here's a toothbrush, shampoo, because they don't have anything. I had seen, when I'm working, sometimes, even when I'm not working, I look at kids and I'm like, oh, they look out of place, and I try to turn it off. And I was out somewhere and I saw a child, and I definitely think that there was probably some child sex trafficking going on with that child, because they were sitting at a restaurant completely out of place, and all they had on were pajamas, slippers, and like one bag. And they just, you can tell, when you're looking at certain children. So you can only imagine their life. They're living hotel to hotel, some of them, being transported across states. So any way we can help them and get them into a better life, that's kind of what we want to do. Not just for the child sex trafficking victims, but for all victims of exploitation, missing kids. That's kind of why we wouldn't be able to survive without our advocacy division, family advocacy division. And then this is the list of everything we do.
I think the one outside of our training and research with, the training to law enforcement, or our partnerships and outreach with our external partners, our public affairs and media is a big piece for us. They assist us with getting information out there to the major networks. They help us produce videos on some of our long-term cases where we're trying to elicit public response and tips in helping with our law enforcement partners.
Live PD.
Live PD is another one where we work with TV shows out there to get our cases out there so that we can highlight, and it really is about getting public exposure to help these families and to help recover these missing children.
And our website is missingkids.com, and if you go to it, you can locate a lot of information about us. I suggest definitely going and seeing. We have programs for prevention. We go into schools, like our Ncmec workshops and our Kid Smarts. It helps kids understand, the internet is dangerous and like how to prepare, and helps prepare parents. I have a 5-year-old, and I have to get prepared to get her used to the internet. So,
missingkids.org.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, missingkids.org. So basically, they have wonderful workshops, a TV show kind of thing that they do for kids, and so it's a great resource. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else on there that we need to.
I think some of the important takeaways, not only endangerments, but also really getting that information out there regarding the children, and anything we can do on our end to gather information from you and from those who are watching this to see how we can tailor these resources and programs towards missing children and families of missing children within the tribal communities, both in a reactive way in terms of how do we help after a child's gone missing, but even proactively with some of the work we're doing from our online education for law enforcement, or our education for children and social workers and families and teachers in terms of our Ncmarts and Kid Smarts programs.
Yeah, and I think our training center, as of 2017, had over 300,000 law enforcement officers who came for training with us, and they come for 2 CEO trainings, we call them, and they come in and we go over everything that we do and how we can assist. So we love training, so we love having people visit. And that's kind of it. So thank you so much, and if anyone has any questions, we're definitely...
And I'll just say, as we determine if there's questions, we've said this numerous times throughout, and I'll reiterate it again. It really is, this is for us as a start of a conversation. It's really, not a once and done. I mean, we would, if there's specific areas that we can provide webinars in the future, we'd be happy to do that. But also, really, for us, it's looking at it as opening up the door to a conversation with you and seeing what we can do in terms of a back and forth and a sharing of information on these topics.
Have you had a managed to discuss the age progression?
We have.
Yes.
Yeah, we have. You probably could speak to it.
Yeah, in fact, I think it's on the slide, but in over the time that we've done it, I don't remember if you go back to
Eric Austin.
No, go back to the one that has the age progression and forensics on it. Team Adam. The question was, keep going back. Keep going.
Sorry.
The question was if we've had success with the age progressions. And right here.
One, yeah.
So if you look at our forensic imaging, which is our team of 4 artists that support cases and doing the age progressions. Since 1989, we've had over 6,800 age progressions completed, and nearly 1,700 resolved in the identification or recovery of a child. And then just as impressive to me is our facial reconstructions. Many cases we'll have cases where all that was recovered. I mentioned earlier about along the southern border where we have about 110 unidentified cases. Well, throughout the U.S., working with law enforcement or medical examiners, sometimes all we'll get is a skull or bone material, maybe not even full skull. But when we do get a skull, in the old days, they would actually use clay to try to mold a face out of that. Through our partnerships with Dr. Hunt at the Smithsonian, he would give them, our forensic artists, a depth range for skin, and they would, we would build it out. One of our partners now, Parabon Nanolabs, they actually have a way where they will do DNA, and through the phenotypes, they help us where we would normally, now we do a computerized reconstruction, which is black and white. What they've been able to do with some of the testing that they can do is develop phenotypes and give us pigmentation of the eye, the hair, the skin, and potential ethnicity to allow us to start to put color to these to help to give a better view for families, or not families, but the public, so that the public can, once you put color to something, it's easier for them to start to relate to who that might be, or if they know. With that, we've done 549 facial reconstructions with 90 identifications from those. When you're thinking you're just starting with potentially bone in many cases. It's amazing the work they do.
Help ID me.
Yeah, so Help ID Me is another area. It's a Facebook page we have for our unidentifieds where we post information. Not only we'll post the facial reconstructions that have been developed on an unidentified human remains case, but we'll also put on there any materials, clothing, or articles that are found with the remains at the time. They actually forensically will clean up the materials and you know, where there might only be a tattering of a shirt, they will sort of take what, you know, they see as the full shirt and draw that out, and then put that also, it'll get posted along with the reconstruction to allow someone to maybe get a thought triggered by not only the face, but also an article of clothing or an item that was found with the remains at the time. So the work they do, it really is amazing. Thank you for asking.
Do you want me to read them out loud?
Sure.
Or do you want to look at them first? What is being done to educate the public on the warning signs of the perpetrators, and does Ncmec partner with the NIMH regarding the children, perpetrators, and generational issues of mental health? That's a kind of long one.
Okay. I know that we've recently, or over the last couple of years, started working with the National Institute of Health to look at some of the areas there, mostly towards autism.
Yeah.
In terms of perpetrators, we share the information we have with our law enforcement partners so they can apply that towards the perpetrators, but our family advocacy division, who works with families, I mean, they have a number of relationships both in...
They bring counselors, actually, psychologists in for trainings, and we have specifically people on our staff. It's not staff, but they volunteer their time. But they work with us in regards to those all different kinds of cases, in regards to mental health with our kids.
I think specifically to NIMH, I'm not sure the relationship they may have, but we're from the Missing Children's Division. I don't think we've had any meetings directly with them as far as I'm aware.
Is there any consideration for providing proof of relationship at hotels?
If we can get some clarification, proof of relationship, meaning between individuals or?
I'm assuming whoever is with the children.
Okay.
She said yes.
Okay. Much of that, and it depends. Many times when children are recovered who might be forced into sex trafficking or human trafficking, many times they're found alone and not always with an individual. It may be later on that law enforcement, through a pattern of life and developing where they've been, a timeline of where they've been, they identify individuals they may have been being exploited by, or through the statements made by the children themselves.
And most of them carry fake IDs or don't have any identification.
Or they lie about their age and say they're 18 so that they aren't. If they get arrested, they get put into, and that's always was a challenge. When I was with the FBI, it's a challenge for law enforcement that if a child doesn't have identification, lies about it, and gets printed for that first time as an adult, then every time they get picked up later and arrested again, then they're in the system as an adult. And so you need to go through many steps to try to see how to get that out.
Not all tribes have casinos. How would
I'm joining for this one.
Welcome.
So the question, I believe, was not all tribes have casinos, and how does the NIGC help those tribes with these issues, and I think missing and murdered Indigenous women. You know, we want to be of as much help as we can. Our mandate is focused on, you know, the gaming community. We are within the general federal family, and we're very happy to help facilitate getting resources from folks like FBI, from DOJ, from any other part of the federal government to tribes that are seeking that information. You know, our role is pretty much regulating casinos, so this is a service that we're providing for part of the public health and safety aspects of our statutory mission. So if you have any specific questions, you know, that you'd like us to follow up with, we're very happy to do that. But we do have to kind of try to stay in our lane, and so we work with partners and collaborators like Ncmec.
So one thing that the National Center can do, and we do this for many jurisdictions or many towns, is that whether it's through our Team Adam and our outreach component, one of the functions, Megan spoke about Team Adam and we both did, in terms of the resources that they bring, not only in their experience, but one of the other pieces they do is they support our outreach, because there are 110 of them throughout the United States. They will go and meet with community organizations. If there's a Missing Children's Day event going on in a community, say a tribal community decides to have a community day or a community event, they will come, they will set up a table, they will talk to members of the community about these issues, and they will, they'll have some handouts and information that they can provide. Or I know, in fact, I've done it myself, and I live in Maryland, in a small town there, and I reached out to our local police department, and they set up a table right under their tent, and I was able to talk to people who came up to meet with the law enforcement officers and talk to them about the resources we have. So that's another aspect that, if it's for us, it's really getting the information out about missing children. And if there's a way, whether it's, maybe digital signage isn't available, a casino, a hotel is not on the property or on the tribal community, if there's a place where we can get posters distributed. Part of our distribution of posters is we still have business recipients that receive it through fax and emails. So we will push information out, and it could be, as part of that partnership, you tell us about how big an area, and it may be children that are non-Native American, but they're traveling through, and we want to make sure that information is available to your communities so that you can let us know if you see that child, or reach out to law enforcement if you see that child. So many times just getting a way to distribute those posters electronically or paper to you, however best we can do that.
Since hotels seem to be a common stop for endangered runaways and sex trafficking victims, is Ncmec offering training specifically for hotel staff?
I know they work with Marriott, but I don't know to the extent.
Yeah, there's a relationship with Marriott, Hilton. So there are hotel chains that we're partnering with in terms of getting information to them. But Ncmec we will provide training to any organization that is interested in learning about what we do, but also in helping us address the issue or reporting the issue. Thank you for the question.
There's a gentleman that asked if there is a possibility that you can send them additional training. He is a manager for the security department in a casino.
Sure. I would say at the end you could reach out to Megan and I directly, if we go to the last slide, our information, or reach back to the Nigc for our information. And you can just email us directly, either myself or Megan, and we can get you in touch with our outreach folks, or reach back to you and see how we can best assist you with your request.
And I'll put the website up there too. If you go to missingkids.org, there's a section with publications, and there's numerous publications in regards to training, or what to do when a child goes missing, for law enforcement, for parents, for anyone in the community. There's tons and tons of things up there that are definitely helpful for every type of missing child. So, and when we speak out to the community, we hand those out sometimes, or say, oh, go to our website, here's indicators, this is what to do. But feel free to call me or email me, and I'm happy to assist in any way.
I think that's all of the questions. Everybody right now is just saying
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We greatly appreciate, Catherine, the opportunity to be here. This has been really nice for us. Like I said, over the last probably 6 to 8 months, we've been trying to reach out to different organizations to get our word out and the resources that we have, and we hope that over time we can solicit the reporting of missing children so we can provide better information back to the tribal communities.
Absolutely, and as I mentioned, we want to serve as a connection point. How do we get information out, facilitate these relationships? So If folks want to follow up with them directly or with us, we're happy to continue that conversation and getting the word out to more people. I think we saw through Megan's research that hotel security staff can play a really important role in this work and really help to identify and work with your staff. So thank you both so much. Do we have any other questions? Well, we still have a few minutes.
I'll just throw out again, if any of your partners out there have digital signage, whether it's road sign, whether it's within the casinos and hotels, and wish to be a part of our secondary distribution process or our poster distribution process, we would be happy to push that information out, even on a one-by-one basis. It doesn't have to be across 573 tribes or 570 tribes, but those that are interested in receiving it.
Great. You do typically target those to the regional area, right?
So yeah, we geolocate. So what we would do is work out with that organization to the extent surrounding their community or their location. And if a child is missing, say, within 100 miles or depending on how big the territory is, we can just push it out. And it may only happen, it could be just Amber Alerts or it could be all missing child. But really, it's just to get more eyes on these posters and help those families and missing children.
And if a case, one thing is, just because it's not an Amber Alert doesn't mean a case can't be critical. So we raise it to that level at the center. If we get a case and we feel that there's numerous endangerments to that child, we work on that like it's an Amber Alert for us. The distribution isn't the same in the sense of like your cell phones and things like that, but we will work very hard to get that poster out wherever we need to do and send anything that we can in regards to a resource for a critical case. Endangered runaway, you name it, we'll do it.
Another example just came to mind that I'll put out there is, generally we're working with law enforcement across the board on a case, and as Megan said earlier, these cases could go on many years, and some of these children may be adults now. We had a case recently where one of the case managers working with their analysts were going through social media and found some images, I think it was on Facebook, where they found proof of life of the child on Facebook and believed it was a child talking to the non-tribal law enforcement agency. And they didn't really have a connection on the tribal community, and based on information, contact information we had through Office of Tribal Justice, Department of Justice, we connected with that tribal agency. They were able to go down to where it looked like the child or now adult was working and make an identification and help close that case. So sometimes really our position, because of some of the social media research we're doing and some of the work our analysts and case managers are doing, it just we can help be a conduit to try to help law enforcement and families have some kind of rectify that case.